the realization that we are all one thing. We are all one. If you can imagine a bonfire and it's throwing off sparks, well, the essence of those sparks is identical to the essence of the bonfire. The source is the bonfire. You and I are the sparks. Our essence, the spirit and the soul, is that God essence that for this time we have taken on a physical body to have a human experience.
Welcome to the Daily Soul Bytes Show. I am your host, Bola Abimbola, frequency alchemist, intuitive life coach, and energy practitioner. Daily Soul Bytes, for those who do not know, is a weekly podcast that really features authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs from the fields of spirituality, psychology, and leadership, sharing their insights for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today I have a very special guest, Peter Dennis, all the way from Canada. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Well, thank you very much, Bola. It's really a joy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I'll read a bit of your bio before we start. Peter Dennis grew up in Canada doing the usual things, for instance, going to school, playing any sport available, chasing girls, etc. Peter then acquired a degree in education, a B.Comm and an M.B.A. He had a rich and rewarding experience in industry, for instance, in Pillsbury, Green Giant, KPMG, and then he retired from senior human resource management positions and became a hypnotherapist, which later became a tool for facilitating channeling. Now, Peter enjoys pursuing spirituality and making friends doing this along the way. Wonderful. Lovely. Thank you for joining me again, Peter. We have a business background in common, and we also have a passion for spirituality in common. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And also about your books. I'd love to hear more about your books because you are a well-known published author, and it'll be good to hear more about those. But how did you get to a place where you're talking now to a lot of channelers? You have your community of channelers, and you have your books on channeling. How did channeling come into your path? And tell us a bit about that transition into spirituality.
Yes. Well, thank you. It still puzzles me a little bit, but as a hypnotherapist, I started out doing the usual things, smoking cessation, weight reduction, things like that. But I started to get more and more requests for things you might say are more spiritual, past life regression, life purpose, things like that. And in so doing, I found 3 of my clients reporting past lives on other planets. Now, at that time, I didn't think this was possible, or it was certainly something I had never heard of. And but there were 3 of them, and I couldn't ignore it. So I rounded up a few other of my clients who I thought were good subjects for hypnosis. We had done past life regression, and I didn't think they'd be too spooked out if they found they were born on some other planet.
Are you looking for AAA grade jewelry or gemstones? Utter Spirit are those we will recommend. They actually do really wonderful jewelry. They have gifted me really nice lapis lazuli, which is really good for connecting with universal wisdom. And also this shungite beads, which come from Russia, and they're really rare because a lot of the times you get shungite beads which affect your skin, and these beads have been really nice. My son also loves them, and Utter Spirit, they give back to nature as well. So that is really nice that they are contributing to the environment. And they also send this intention cards. They're quite nice. This shungite card says, I cleanse myself from harmful energies. And the lapis lazuli card says, I am connected to the infinite wisdom of the universe. So there's information that goes with it, as well as them, producing really good quality jewelry. So I will recommend to connect with Otter Spirit, and the code will be going with this video. So check them out.
I invited them to come to my home and individually, and the first one was Karen Ashby, who lives nearby and has been a friend over the years. And I regressed her back to a point where I asked her, Karen, what are you doing? And she said, I'm in my spaceship. I said, oh yeah, what are you doing there? Well, we're monitoring Earth. And why would you be doing that? Well, we're here to help with the ascension process. And I said, wait a minute, I'm dealing with Karen, singular individual, and you're answering in the plural. We are doing this. And I said, by any chance, are we channeling? I don't know what prompted me to say that, actually, but I did. And yes, right away, yes, you are channeling. Well, who are you? Well, we're the Palladians. And from there, Karen became a really good channeler, and some of the others I had invited did pretty much the same thing. With hypnosis or even a guided meditation, you can help people to relax quite deeply. And when they are in that state, they are more likely to open up and allow, that sort of thing. And if you issue an invitation, somebody will answer sometimes. As a matter of fact, in my experience, over 80% of the time, somebody answers. So that's how it began. And here I am today. I've worked with 127 as of last week, individuals who are now all channeling. And I would say maybe a couple dozen of those were channeling before I met them, like yourself. They were well down that road, but aside from helping people become channelers, I help channelers take their talents to the public. And then thirdly, I disseminate information largely gathered from the many channeling sessions I've had. I think I could probably cite about 1,000 different recorded conversations I've had with channeled beings. So I've learned a thing or two. I get to ask questions. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. That is so interesting, because I know that I'm one of your channelers, and I really found it very supportive and encouraging, as well as insightful. My time working with you so far has been really, really insightful. So thank you for the work that you do. I wanted to ask you about channeling. Now, it is something that I understand that we all do. Every single person channels. Could you share some insights around this? Because there's some of us who do not believe that we're already channeling, and we sometimes, find ourselves, going on so many different journeys to begin to channel more consciously. What would you say is the difference between the day-to-day channeling that we all do and the channeling that you and those who have worked with you have found themselves doing in a much more multidimensional way?
Yes. I think you're quite right in saying everybody channels, or almost everybody. I suppose there's some that may, have brain damage or whatever. But really the question I've encountered is not so much can anybody channel, is are they ready to channel? And although they may have that capability, they may have some things preventing them from doing it. It could be past life trauma, could be ancestral memories that are not very pleasant. Often there are things buried in the unconscious mind that we're not aware of. And really we have to clear some of that out before we can channel. But day to day, I think we all get little nudges. Our ideas pop into our minds, and we say, where did that come from? You recognize at times that can't be me. Well, we all have a little team, of guides and angels, and their job is to kind of keep us going down the path of our plan, you might say. And so they nudge us with these popping ideas into our heads. We have a higher self who does the same sort of thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of those who are here to help humanity at this time, some of the ascended masters and such, are maybe doing some of the same sort of thing too. Pretty sure I'm not answering your question completely here, but on the one hand, yes, we're pretty much all channeling. I channel when I write. I channel when I speak in public. Songwriters, composers are channeling. Oral channeling like you do, that's different. And I'm not doing it. I suspect I will be, but that takes a little, I guess, preparation. If the person is clear enough, then in my latest 2 books, I laid out the procedure I use. And it's basically to help the individual either with hypnosis or a guided meditation to relax greatly. And probably to a point where they are in a meditative state, brain waves was changed to alpha, metabolism drops, and chemicals flow differently and that sort of thing. When they're in that state, they can more easily allow. Now, there's elements of trust here, and you have to just kind of trust the universe, which isn't always easy to do, but you do. I ask that the individual's ego and analytical mind just step aside, be the observers. Everybody's safe. You go sit over in the corner and just watch what's happening. And I ask the client to issue an invitation that if there is a being of the light, 5th dimension of consciousness or higher, who would like to speak through the channeler and talk to me, please come forward and do that. And I also ask Archangel Michael to stand by and just ensure that it's only beings of the light. Typically, at that point, we wait. And it takes a little while, but the individual or the client can report, and often does, that they may see images, they may feel energy around their heads, their hands maybe. So they're beginning to get some kind of a response, which I believe is the being who wants to channel through them is kind of tapping them on the shoulder and saying, I'm here. Probably they're also saying, get out of the way and let me through, because the client initially finds it kind of difficult to just step out of the picture and open that channel for the messages to come through. But the being will send a telepathic message. The client's brain will receive it, process it in some way I don't understand, use the voice box, the vocal cords, the mouth, and they will express or articulate the message. And that's roughly how channeling works, and that's what I do to bring it about. Sometimes, and I think the record actually is about 45 minutes, so we just waited for the being to come through. Now, since that 45 minutes, and this was one of the earliest ones, I think I've learned a trick or two to kind of tease them forward, you might say. But, sometimes by changes in the client's facial expression, which usually has their eyes closed, but as you probably know, when they're in an alpha state, the eyelids are fluttering. Sometimes I even see a smile come over their face. So I might, end my silence and just say, is there a being here? And sometimes I get a response. And the responses have been all over the map. There was one group that came in and said, first words out of their mouth were, what took you so long? They were just waiting to come through and finally did. But others, it takes a fair bit of encouragement. And when there's usually an indication that they are, I will ask, do you need a few moments to work on the alignment from your side? The channel being has a vibration that's considerably higher than ours. Ours is somewhere like so. And they've got the human raises his or her vibration, the being lowers theirs. And even when they're kind of on a level, there's still some tinkering that has to be done to get the alignment really nailed down. So I usually give them a few moments and say, look, you work on that. I'll be quiet. And when you're done, you just say, I'm back or hello or whatever. And we carry on. Initially, I begin with yes, no questions. Sometimes I have to say to the client, look, first thing that pops into your head, you just say it. I say, well, is that me or is that them? Doesn't matter. Just say it. And so I'll ask, is there a being here? Yes or no? Yes. Is that being of the light? Yes. Would that being like to channel through you? Yes. And we go on like that. And then pretty soon I might say something like, why are you here? And it's no longer a yes or no, but we might get here to help or something like that. So you build on it. And after a few practice sessions, the words become sentences, become paragraphs, and then it's a regular conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I do agree with you about how we all channel in different ways. I remember learning to channel. I started with light language in church. It was called speaking in tongues in church many years ago. And then I wrote Daily Soul Bytes in 2020. I didn't use my light language from church very much, but I forgot all about it. And it was after I channeled Daily Soul Bytes that I really found myself being driven. It was time, and I hear what you say about there's a timing to this. And then I went on a number of different courses, and I really encourage anyone who's listening who wants to do more conscious vocal channeling to contact Peter, because there is that need for us to get help to allow us to release some of the, not just the conscious reservations, but the subconscious resistance as well. So yes, thank you. And I've heard somewhere about how we all channel when we're doing something that we love, whether it's writing or dancing or music. This is when we allow that Holy Spirit, that spirit guide, that higher self to come through us. The ego system is less likely to interfere with the higher self or our multidimensional spirit self to drive it, because the ego has to let this happen from a place of trust. It cannot be forced. So there is that process where we can receive support to allow us to really begin to allow that ego systems within us to really feel more supported, feel safe enough to surrender and allow. So no, I totally agree. Would you want to tell us about your books, Peter? Anyone who's listening who doesn't have knowledge of it, they may come to understand it, and also to contact some of the channelers who you have featured, in your books.
Well, thank you for that. I've written 5 books, actually, that are a series, and I call the series Pathways to Higher Consciousness. And it starts out with some metaphysics, which I think philosophers are playing with. It's closer to, I think, academia or everyday life, maybe. Then I wrote one about spirituality. People talk about it, but if you ask them for a definition, you get all kinds. And I wrote a book about what it is and how spiritual am I and how can I develop it and that sort of thing. Why should I develop it? That kind of thing. Then I wrote one shortly after the first 5 channelers started channeling with me. I thought this was amazing because I had heard of maybe 3 or 4 channelers, and here right in my own house, there were 5 of them. So I was excited about that, and I wrote a book about it. And put some spiritual concepts into the book. But the last two books are really a product of interviews I've had with various channeled entities. And I've transcribed them and written them up as articles of maybe 3, 4, 5 pages. The second of those two books, I used artificial intelligence quite a bit. It streamlined the process. It eliminated the need for editing because it did it for me, and it was really good and much quicker. An article that would involve an interview, a transcription, a writing, and an editing would take maybe 15 to 20 hours. And I'd give it to the channeler, and do you like it? And then he changes, and it comes back to me. And, 15 to 20 hours was kind of the norm. Artificial intelligence is like 30 minutes. It's incredible. So the second book, most of the interviews there are AI assisted in the writing or the presenting. And it's probably fair to say I assembled that book more than I wrote it. But the messages from the interviews are amazing. There's Mary Magdalene, there's Mother Mary, there's Jesus, there's ascended masters, there's archangels, there's spirit guides, there's higher selves, there's a whole gamut. Between the two books, there's 40 of these interviews. In the fourth book, or the first of those two, I stepped back from it and I thought, there's a lot of messages here. What are the top 10? And so I identified what I thought were the top 10. And they're in that book. The last book, I went back to some of the videos that I had done with channelers, realizing that there were some great messages there. And again, I found some AI platforms that would take would take a video and give me a written document that was fully edited and everything. So this latest book has 40 individual messages. And I go back to that book myself just to reread it because some of them are so moving and bang on and practical. This idea of spirituality for us is it's got to be practical. I don't sit around and cross-legged and burn incense and chant. Well, you do know because you come from business too. We're here in the third dimension of consciousness and maybe the fourth, but we're here to enjoy it as it is. It's dense, it's physical, and we should get all we can from it. It's like we're in grade 3, and before we get to grade 4, we want to get everything out of grade 3 first. And so these messages are very useful, I think. I can give you some examples if you like.
Yes. Could you tell us the title of your books, or of the last two? Yeah,
the last two in particular are called The Channeling Connection, the process, the beings, and the messages. And the last one is just book 2.
And the writer is Peter Dennis, your name.
That's right, yeah.
Just so that people can, wonderful. And where can the books be found?
They're on Amazon. They're on most platforms. I'm finding that actually audiobooks are selling more than paperbacks and ebooks combined. So Audible has it, Findaway has it, which puts it on Spotify and a number of other platforms. So I think any place you can get a book, you'll probably find mine. And if not, my distributor Quanta will probably get it to you.
Thank you so much, Peter. I heard you when you said that there are some really key messages from all the different channelers that have come through. I wanted to ask you 2 questions. One is, what is your definition of spirituality? And the second is, what would you say are the most common messages that really are important for us at this time?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of ways of looking at and defining spirituality. I think it's a state of existence where we are no longer physical. It's a simple way of looking at it. You can define it as we have increased our vibration to a level where we have escaped all this density and physicality. So, as far as I'm concerned, I guess you look at each religion and see what they're up to these days. And if they're into community assistance and they're preaching gratitude and compassion and generosity, then great, they're helping to raise your vibration. But if it's hellfire and damnation, they're not. As to the messages, I think there are really two that stand out in my mind, and I keep encountering individuals who could really benefit from these. Jesus told me that he was misinterpreted, and they tell you that, in the books and everything, that Jesus said, love your neighbor and love God. He says, you can't do that until first you love yourself. He said that was his main message when he came here, and it got lost. But self-love. And I went back to him and said, okay, well, look, a lot of us don't really hate ourselves. We sort of like ourselves kind of okay, but do we need work in that area? And he said, yeah, a lot of you do. And I said, well, okay, give us some tips. How do we do this? And, well, I'll give you a couple. One, I just stand in front of a mirror, look yourself in the eye and say, Bola, I love you. Give yourself a hug. He says, that'll help. We do that every day. Another big one is we can look back on our lives and identify times when we said, geez, I really screwed up there. I wish I hadn't done that. And you get down on yourself and you feel bad and you lower your vibration. Well, the other way to look at that is, hey, I can celebrate that today I'm much smarter than I was then. I learned something. There was a lesson there and I got it. And now I'm not, I'm better than that. Cause for celebration raises the vibration. Another perhaps thing that helps you is many people find themselves in a spiral of negative thinking. And, if it goes to the extreme and it relates to the past, it's depression. If it relates to the future, it's anxiety. Well, a simple little trick is think of a time or an event that you participated in that puts a smile on your face. Something that happened in your past that you just feel really good about and you did at the time. Well, remember that. Just have it in reserve. You catch yourself going down that spiral of negative thinking, say to yourself, switch, and immediately go to that happy memory. A lot of people find that very helpful. Otherwise, they tend to continue down. The other self-love, I guess, is a big one. And the other really big one is the realization that we are all one thing. We are all one. If you can imagine a bonfire and it's throwing off sparks. Well, the essence of those sparks is identical to the essence of the bonfire. The source is the bonfire. You and I are the sparks. Our essence, the spirit and the soul, is that God essence. That for this time, we have taken on a physical body to have a human experience. Many of the messages keep coming back to repeating, we're all one. And if we realize that, there wouldn't be wars. Competition would be a lot different. Because if I hurt you and I really realize that you and I are the same thing, we are one, I'm not going to hurt you because it hurts me. Yeah. Those are two of the big ones, and I would invite your listeners to check out the books, and there's a lot of really good ones there.
Thank you. I totally agree. Thank you, Peter. I definitely agree with the idea that we are sparks from a bonfire. And I remember another one of my mentors talking about us, each of us being a piece of a pizza tray. So there is a pizza that is universal, infinite consciousness, and each of us is a slice of that pizza. Each of us is a piece of that infinite intelligence, each and every one of us. And without us, that pizza is not complete. We complete that pizza. And this is something that we need to sometimes do. This is my work. In my work, I created this quantum Reiki soul psych awakening container. It's an 8-week container, bespoke one-to-one container, where really the goal is for my clients to come to that place of worth, of infinite worth, because that is really where we come to own our intentions. We come to be very clear about the meanings that our activities and our parts have. We also become very clear on the impact that we have come to have, or the impact that we would like to have. Now, at the end of the day, what we want is presence. Each and every one of us needs to stay present and not letting the imaginations or the stories of the past or the concerns about the future really stop us. They come and they go, but it's about how we use those thoughts, how we use those stories to maintain our worth and to help ourselves to continue to have meaning as we stay present. So I really value the channels that have shared these messages, and we need to continue to have more and more of these messages. There are nearly 8 billion of us on this planet, and how do we continue to ensure that these messages are going far and wide? Have you found, Peter, that there are more channelers, more and more, as you have done this work, or would you find that they are less? What has been your experience?
The first time I met a channeler was about 40 years ago. It was Anne Morris who channeled the Trans Seekers in Toronto. And I got to know Anne, and that started me reading. And Daryl Anka was doing Bashar at that time. Jane Roberts had done Seth probably 2 decades before, at least. But if at that time you counted the number of channelers, you could do it on 1 or 2 hands. If you go on YouTube today, you will probably find thousands of them, hundreds anyway. I've got 127 that I'm on a first name basis with, and that number seems to be growing. So yes, it's growing very much. And the beings, when I ask them about this, they say there's lots of us, way more than there are of you, and we want to help. Humanity is going through a very large step in its evolution. We can call it ascension or whatever, but we're moving to the 5th dimension of consciousness, the realm of spirituality. And they're here to help.
The value of channeling, there is something about how it allows us to really have our day-to-day being driven by our multidimensional selves, our spirit selves. This is a real thing. It is very real. The persons we were before we started channeling, consciously channeling, whether it's oral or light language, before we started that, we would find that we are definitely in a much more peaceful, grounded place. There is something that happens to the biology of the body. It's not just a spiritual thing that's in the mind or something that is in the ethers. We actually feel the cells of our body vibrating higher. We are able to hold our resilience. It's not like we no longer have any ups and downs going on in our lives, but we are able to hold on to that place of neutrality. We're able to be much more resilient. We have support. We have guidance. We have more love. So I think the more of us that are channeling, the more of us that can really come to release this subconscious resistance and allow ourselves to flow in this, the better. I'd want to find out, Peter, I know you have a community and you do have some sessions that you hold every week or every month. Could you tell us more about this?
Well, I just concluded it, actually. I did have, on the second Sunday of every month, one of the channelers I worked with would be my guest, and I would moderate, and we put out a link in my newsletter. But I've shut down both the newsletter and the Sunday channeling. And I've been prompted to do this with the idea of kind of clearing the decks to make room for some new things that are coming along. And so I think to get to my channelers, there's 39 of them featured on my website. You're going to be maybe number 40, and there are probably 3 or 4 others working at it right now. So, I guess you can see with them not only their contact information, but links to some of the recordings they have done. And I guess people can check that out. Those links go to my YouTube channel where there's more. And you can find channelers that you like. And I would say also Oracle is a great source where people can go to find really good channelers who have been checked out. But Wenhu, who owns and manages Oracle, has done a superb job in having a platform for channelers to get out to the public. And I have my website that does something the same, but not as spectacular as she does.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, I am really pleased to be part of your community. There is nothing like expanding something that we focus on. Whatever we focus on is what we will expand in our lives. And if we have set an intention to expand the spirituality, expand the channeling, it's important to align to communities, to groups of people who are passionate about this, who will encourage this, who will expand this in our lives. So I am thrilled to be part of your community and also part of Oracle. So it's really nice that we have these communities, and I look forward to your next steps, because you're saying that you are going to be preparing for something slightly different. So I know it's going to be powerful and profound. So I am going to be looking forward to that. Do you have any final words for us today before we go, Peter?
Well, I think that today there is a lot of stress in the world. We have 7, you could say, Earth systems: the financial system, the education system, the religion system, the government system, the food and water system, the healthcare system, and the media system. They're all undergoing major change. And in so doing, it's something like a kitchen renovation. You tear down the old to make way for new and better. And I think if you look at each of those institutions, you'll find they're beginning to crumble. And the tearing down phase is going on right now, I think. I would say we should all do our best to not get caught up in the emotionality that could be involved with some of these structures coming down, and be optimistic about what's going to replace them. I'm very optimistic. The beings are very optimistic. Humanity and planet Earth are evolving very quickly. And, but we have to go through this sort of clearing. I guess Mother Earth is clearing. The earthquakes and tidal waves and things are just part of it. It's not a vengeful thing, and it's, I know we get excited about climate change. Climate's always changing. It always has. We've had ice ages and everything. So, but I've spoken with Mother Gaia. She's very happy with the way humans have seemed to turn the corner and starting to wake up and realize that as they damage her, we damage ourselves. We're all one again. So I would say be optimistic. Don't get caught up in the emotionality of some of this tearing down. Just be the spectator, watch the show unfold, and relax.
Thank you, Peter. Definitely. Change is not necessarily a negative thing. I remember seeing a cartoon of the horse, pulling, being the form of transport back then. And I think everyone thought horses would go out of business when cars came on the scene. But now that cartoon showed the car, with this horse cart behind it, and the horse is now being driven by the car. So, not only did the horse get a better deal, but it was not about the change. It was about how things happened in a way whereby there was a difference. There was a difference in the way that we travel from A to B, but there's a difference. A different way of doing things. It doesn't mean something becomes defunct. And we can actually become much more aware of what we want, even if we're observing a timeline that is not necessarily changing in the way that we prefer or that we are used to. We can hold that intention of, yes, I still want to have a horse. I still want to have this. And then we are led to let that unfold in the way that really can allow us to still have meaning in our day-to-day. So there is something about us seeing change in a different way, about still being empowered and not feeling victimized by what we see, because that reality is something that is constantly dynamic. It's constantly changing, and there are many options that we can come to experience. So yes, thank you. Thank you for joining me today, Peter.
It's been a pleasure, Bola. I really enjoy it. And off camera, I'm sure we're going to have some really good discussions. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Peter. I do enjoy our residence as well. Thank you so much. And I would like to wish everyone a very wonderful 2026. I know that 2025 has been a brilliant year for some of us, and a year that has held so many different frequencies for many of us. So here is 2026 being the type of year that really sets us on higher planes and brings us to that place of deeper peace and joy. And to remind you to check out the website, and we'll put up the links for Peter Dennis's website and his books. They're going to be really significant in how they open up that sense of allowability and that sense of knowledge. There's an activation that happens when we focus on something that we desire. It expands. So I do believe that this is not a coincidence if you're resonating with this. And to remind you to subscribe to Daily Soul Bytes, we have new episodes every Wednesday broadcasted, and we're now in season 4. Season 5 is starting in just a couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to you joining us. Subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, set the notification so you know of the new episodes coming on. And I look forward to seeing you on the very next episode, very next season of Daily Soul Bytes show. Bye-bye.